وبخدمتك موصولا وأعمالي عندك مقبولا حتى تكون أعمالي وأورادي كلها وردا واحدا وحالي في خدمتك سرمدا. يا سيدي يا من عليه معولي، يا من إليه شكوت أحوالي، يا ربي يا ربي يا رب، قو على خدمتك جوارحي واشدد على العزيمة جوانحي وحبلي الجد في خشيتك والدوام في الاتصال بخدمتك حتى أسرح إليك في ميادين السابقين وأسرع إليك في المبارزين وأشتاق إلى قربك في المشتاقين وأدنو منك دنو المخلصين وأخافك مخافة الموقنين وأجتمع في جوارك مع المؤمنين. اللهم ومن أرادني بسوء فأرد ومن كادني فكد واجعلني من أحسن عبيدك نصيبا عندك وأقربهم منزلة منك وأخصهم زلفة لديك، فإنه لا ينال ذلك إلا بفضلك، وجد لي بجودك واعطف علي بمجدك واحفظني برحمتك واجعل لساني بذكرك لهجا وقلبي بحبك متيما ومن علي بحسن إجابتك وأقلني عسرتي واغفر زلتي، فإنك قضيت على عبادك بعبادتك وأمرتهم بدعائك وزمنت لهم الإجابة، فإليك يا رب نسبت وجهي وإليك يا رب مددت يدي، فبعزتك استجب لي دعائي وبلغني مناي ولا تقطع من فضلك رجائي واكفني شر الجن والإنس من أعدائي. يا سريع الرضا يا سريع الرضا اغفر لمن لا يملك إلا الدعاء فإنك فعال لما تشاء. يا من اسمه دواء وذكره شفاء وطاعته غنى، ارحم من راس ماله الرجاء وسلاحه البكاء. يا سابغ النعم يا دافع النقم يا نور المستوحشين في الظلم يا عالما لا يعلم، صل على محمد وآل محمد وافعل بما أنت أهله، وصلى الله على رسوله والأئمة الميامين من أهله وسلم تسليما كثيرا كثيرا. Let's recite 5 times Amma Yujibul for the protection and safety of Muslimin around the world, especially the people in Gaza, for the quick and speedy recovery of all Mu'mineen and Mu'minat and Muslimin who are sick and unwell, for the maghfirat of all arwah Mu'mineen and Mu'minat, and for the hastening of our Imam of the time, Ajjallahu Ta'ala Farajahu Sharif. Let's recite 5 times Amma Yujibul. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. أمن يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء 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 اللهم أدخل على أهل القبور السرور اللهم أصلح كل فاسد من أمور المسلمين اللهم اشفي كل مريض اللهم أجل لوليك الفرج اللهم أجل لوليك الفرج اللهم أجل لوليك الفرج وجعل الله من أنصاره وعوانه برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين رحم الله من يكره الفاتحة بسم الله
سورة فاتحة. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ياسين والقرآن الحكيم إنك لمن المرسلين على صراط مستقيم تنزيل العزيز الرحيم لتنذر قوما ما أنذر آباءهم فهم غافلون لقد حق القول على أكثرهم فهم لا يؤمنون إن جعلنا في أعناقهم أغلالا فهي إلى الأذقان فهم مقمحون وجعلنا من بين أيديهم سدا ومن خلفهم سدا فأغشيناهم فهم لا يبصرون وسواء عليهم أنذرتهم أم لم تنذرهم لا يؤمنون إنما تنذر من يتبع الذكر وخشي الرحمن بالغيب وبشره بمغفرة وأجر كريم إن نحن نحيي الموتى ونكتب ما قدموا وآثارهم وكل شيء أحصيناه في إمام مبين واضرب لهم مثلا أصحاب القرية إذ جاءها المرسلون إذ أرسلنا إليهم اثنين فكذبوهما فعززنا بالثالث فقالوا إنا إليكم مرسلون قالوا ما أنتم إلا بشر مثلنا وما أنزل الرحمن من شيء إن أنتم إلا تكسبون قالوا ربنا يعلم إنا إليكم لمرسلون وما علينا إلا البلاغ المبين قالوا إنا تطيرنا بكم لئن لم تنتهوا لنرجمنكم ليمسنكم منا عذاب عليم قالوا طائركم معكم أئن ذكرتم بل أنتم قوم مسرفون وجاء من أقصى المدينة رجل يسعى قال يا قوم اتبعوا المرسلين اتبعوا من لا يسألكم أجرا وهم مهتدون وما لي لا أعبد الذي فطرني وإليه ترجعون أأتخذ من دونه آلهة أن يردني الرحمن بضر لا تغني عني شفاعتهم شيئا ولا ينقذون إني إذا لفي ضلال مبين إني آمنت بربكم فاسمعون قيل ادخل الجنة قال يا ليت قومي يعلمون بما غفر لي ربي وجعلني من المكرمين وما أنزلنا على قومه من بعده من جند من السماء وما كنا منزلين إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم خامدون يا حسرة على العباد ما يأتيهم من رسول إلا كانوا به يستهزئون ألم يروا كم أهلكنا قبلهم من القرون أنهم إليهم لا يرجعون وإن كل لما جميع لدينا محضرون وآية لهم الأرض الميتة أحييناها وأخرجنا منها حبا فمنه يأكلون وجعلنا فيها جنات من نخيل وأعناب وفجرنا فيها من العيون ليأكلوا من ثمره وما عملته أيديهم أفلا يشكرون سبحان الذي خلق الأزواج كلها مما تنبت الأرض ومن أنفسهم ومما لا يعلمون وآية لهم الليل نسلخ منه النهار فإذا هم مظلمون والشمس تجري لمستقر لها ذلك تقدير العزيز العليم والقمر قدرناه منازل حتى عاد كالعرجون القديم لا الشمس ينبغي لها أن تدرك القمر ولا الليل سابق النهار وكل في فلك يسبحون وآية لهم أنا حملنا ذريتهم في الفلك المشحون وخلقنا لهم من مثله ما يركبون وإن نشاء نغرقهم فلا صريخ لهم ولا هم ينقذون إلا رحمة منا ومتاعا إلى حين وإذا قيل لهم اتقوا ما بين أيديكم وما خلفكم لعلكم ترحمون وما تأتيهم من آية من آيات ربهم إلا كانوا عنها معرضين وإذا قيل لهم أنفقوا مما رزقكم الله قال الذين كفروا للذين آمنوا أن نطعم من لو يشاء الله أطعمه إن أنتم إلا في ضلال مبين ويقولون متى هذا الوعد إن كنتم صادقين ما ينظرون إلا صيحة واحدة تأخذهم وهم يخصمون فلا يستطيعون توصية ولا إلى أهلهم يرجعون ونفخ في الصور فإذا هم من الأجداث إلى ربهم ينسلون قالوا يا ويلنا من بعثنا من مرقدنا هذا ما وعد الرحمن وصدق المرسلون إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم جميع لدينا محضرون فاليوم لا تظلم نفس شيئا ولا تجزون إلا ما كنتم تعملون إن أصحاب الجنة اليوم في شغل فاكهون هم وأزواجهم في ظلال على الأرائك متكئون لهم فيها فاكهة ولهم ما يدعون سلام قولا من رب الرحيم وامتازوا اليوم أيها المجرمون ألم أعهد إليكم يا بني آدم أن لا تعبدوا الشيطان إنه لكم عدو مبين وأن اعبدوني هذا صراط مستقيم ولقد أضل منكم جبلا كثيرا أفلم تكونوا تعقلون هذه جهنم التي كنتم توعدون اصلوها اليوم بما كنتم تكفرون اليوم نختم على أفواههم وتكلمنا أيديهم وتشهد أرجلهم بما كانوا يكسبون ولو نشاء لطمسنا على أعينهم فاستبقوا الصراط فأنى يبصرون ولو نشاء لمسخناهم على مكانتهم فما استطاعوا مزيا ولا يرجعون ومن نعمره ننكسه في الخلق أفلا يعقلون وما علمناه الشعر وما ينبغي له إن هو إلا ذكر وقرآن مبين لينذر من كان حيا ويحق القول على الكافرين أولم يروا أن خلقنا لهم مما عملت أيدينا أنعاما فهم لها مالكون وذللناها لهم فمنه ركوبهم ومنها يأكلون ولهم فيها منافع ومشارب أفلا يشكرون واتخذوا من دون الله آلهة لعلهم ينصرون لا يستطيعون نصرهم وهم لهم جند محضرون فلا يحزنك قولهم إنا نعلم ما يسرون وما يعلنون أولم ير الإنسان أنا خلقناه من نطفة فإذا هو خصيم مبين وضرب لنا مثلا ونسي خلقه قال من يحيي العظام وهي رميم قل युह्यीहा अल्लज़ी अंशाहा अव्वल मर्रा वहुवा बिकुल्लि खल्क़िन अलीम अल्लज़ी जअल लकुम मिनश-शजरिल अख़ज़रि नारन फ़इज़ा अंतुम मिन्हु तूक़िदून अवलैसल्लज़ी ख़लक़स-समावाति वल अर्ज़ बिक़ादिरिन अला अन युख़्लिक़ा मिस्लहुम बला वहुवल ख़ल्लाक़ुल अलीम इन्नमा अम्रुहु इज़ा अरादा शैअन अन यक़ूला लहू कुन फ़यकून फ़सुब्हानल्लज़ी बियदिही मलकूतु कुल्लि शैइन व इलैहि तुरजऊन सदक़ल्लाहुल अलियुल अज़ीम। अल्लाहुम्मा सल्लि अला मुहम्मदिन व आलि मुहम्मद। सूरह मुबारक अल-फ़ातिहा।
बर मोहम्मद वाले मोहम्मद सलावत मोहम्मद वाले मोहम्मद। जिंदाबाद है करबला, पाइंदाबाद है करबला, पाइंदाबाद है करबला, जिंदाबाद। मल्क तेरी खाक चेहरों पर 72 जब चले, लश्करे आदा को हैबर से पसीने आ गए। खींच कर तलवार निकले जब अली के लाडले, रौंद डाला नख़वते बातिल को कदमों के तले। पाइंदाबाद है करबला, जिंदाबाद है करबला। मांद पड़ता जा रहा था दीन का जब आफ़ताब, लेके अंगड़ाई तेरे ज़रों से उठा इन्क़िलाब। आ गया मैदान में फिर फ़ातिमा का महाताब, खींच ली बढ़ कर यज़ीदियत के चेहरे से नक़ाब। पाइंदाबाद है करबला, जिंदाबाद है करबला। तेरी याद आई इधर आँखों में आंसू आ गए, कैसे कैसे फूल तेरी खाक पर मुरझा गए। मरते मरते भी जहां ने जुल्म को दहला गए, या अली कह कर हजारों पर 72 छा गए। पाइंदाबाद है करबला, जिंदाबाद है करबला, पाइंदाबाद। जब असर करती नहीं भी मार को कोई दवा, अक़रबा मायूस हो जाते हैं करके हर दुआ। काम ऐसे वक्त आती है तेरी खाके शिफा, कह के ये इस दम पलटता है फरिश्ता मौत का। पाइंदाबाद है करबला, जिंदाबाद है करबला, पाइंदाबाद। एक सर मांगा था सरवर ने 72 सर दिए, एक सर मांगा था सरवर ने 72 सर दिए। क़ासिम अब्बास अकबर और अली असगर दिए। ज़ूफ़िशानी के लिए मान क्या क्या कर दिए, गोद में शह ने तेरी कितने सितारे भर दिए। पाइंदाबाद ऐ करबला जिंदाबाद, ऐ करबला पाइंदाबाद। याद है अब तक जमाने को वो दिन आशूर का, रन में लाखों से 72 का हुआ जब मार का। दोपहर में अहले दिल ने कर दिया था फैसला, नाम जिंदा है तेरा जब तक है हक का तज़किरा। पाइंदाबाद ऐ करबला जिंदाबाद, ऐ करबला पाइंदाबाद, ऐ करबला। सरवरे कौनैन के सदक़े में इज्जत मिल गई, मीसमो कंबर ने जो पाई वो किस्मत मिल गई। तेरे दामन में मुजाहिद को जो तुरबत मिल गई, चाहिए फिर और क्या, मरते ही जन्नत मिल गई। जिंदाबाद ऐ करबला जिंदाबाद, ऐ करबला पाइंदाबाद, ऐ करबला जिंदाबाद। पर मोहम्मद वाले मोहम्मद सल्लल्लाहु
محمد وآل محمد صلوات. Before I invite Qamar to the podium, can I please request Mumin to recite Surah Fatiha for Marhuma Malika by Mystery, who passed away in London today, and all our Muhammad al-Fatiha. We once again honored to have Qamar Bhai to come and recite Majlis on behalf of Jamaat. I'll take this opportunity to thank him for his services that he gives us every week. Muhammad wa ali Muhammad salawat.
Surah Al-Fatiha. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على خاتم النبيين وآله الطاهرين السلام على محمد. Dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum. In the third part, I will just try to reflect back on some of the taking forward the history of Holy Prophet in Makkah. In the first discussion, we talked about Holy Prophet and his parents and forefathers, and expressed our pledge and our belief that they were on monotheism in the form of the religions that they existed before. So definitely not from the pagans. And that is to refute the idea that most some of the people have started saying that. We also talked about that Holy Prophet came from the land of Makkah, which was a center of trade, commerce, and literature, and sort of ruled almost in terms of the religious center, having Khana Kaaba. And we put the argument, if that was not the case, why would Abraha come all the way to attack? So meaning Makkah was a noble place. And this is in line with Allah's sunnah, that he sends his noble prophets to a piece of land where it is needed. We talked about his youth and how, and also most significantly, that his childhood was quite significant, that he lost his parents, father before birth, mother afterwards, and then his grandfather as well. But he stayed concentrated on the path. In the second part, we talked about his youth and his skills in merchanthood, that how did he become so much famous as a noble person, as a wise person of that time. We talk a lot about his Amin and Sadiq, but we forgot that he was wise as well. He was known as wise person. And how do we know that? Because of the issue of Hajr Aswad. When Khana Kaaba was being built, he was picked from all the tribes to come and resolve this, who will put the Hajr Aswad behind. And he came up with the idea which put all the tribes together. Then we talked about his wedding to Lady Khadija and birth of his first children. So today we will talk about his, we talked about the receiving of the revelation, but today we talk about his life now after the first revelation. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. And but before I proceed there, may I take your permission just to spend a few minutes on the atrocity which I'm sure sometimes I know that's keeping a lot of us up, even awake at night, with the difficulties the brothers are going through. And I have seen a lot of, I'm sure you are on 100 groups of this group and that group who'd be sending and firing YouTube pictures on you and notions on you, and even talking about who is the right person and are they doing right, are they wrong. I will just want to take a few seconds just for us to concentrate on one question. We have just finished the month of Muharram, or month of our sadness, and and I am talking about me, I claimed that I follow Husseini faith, Husseini beliefs, Husseini values. If Imam Hussein was here today, what would he have done? Whose side was you? Brothers and sisters, forget about like this is being thrown, especially in the schools and colleges and universities, that this was this person's land or that person's land. We are murdering, people are murdering people there. Children, patients, women, and all of that is happening. And when that is happening, and the excuse is being given because somebody has got a right to self-defense. How could you have a right to self-defense when you are the ruling party? You are the aggressor party. I know that I need to take names even. The Palestinians have been left behind. And then there is another argument which is being promoted. Well, this is an Arab conflict. This is for the Arabs. This is exactly what left Muslim ibn Aqil lonely. This is a Meccan conflict. Why are we bringing it in Kufa? And he was left all alone. And then we think, what can we do? We sit so far away. What difference in hell we are going to make? I'm sure all of us have heard, and I think it's in Madrasa book as well, this story, one of my favorite ones, that when Ibrahim was about to be thrown in the fire, there was a toad or frog, whatever you call it. He was taking the water in the mouth and spitting on the fire. And the fire, which was like huge fire, and the toad was just sitting there. And basically, it is a story, but most probably because we don't know how frogs speak. But somebody asked the frog, "What are you doing?" He said, "So that at least my name is there trying to help Ibrahim." This is that if a frog can do that, and this is the mentality. I'm not saying that it happened or not happened. It's a hikayat which is written. If everybody on the day of Ashura would have said, "What difference I'm possibly going to make?" Because they were all going to be butchered and murdered anyway. Most probably, brothers and sisters, if I can humbly say, that in this day and age, I will find it very surprising to think that many of the people who come out to raise this voice or write a letter will be brutally murdered like Husseinis did on the day of Ashura. So my plea to myself, I think, is that I need to think about the way, how can I move on the way so that on the day of Qiyamah, I can stand there and say, I did that tiny toad thing to Smith. And why? And the last point I want to say, because I believe we have a duty. Arab, non-Arab, something. But all of us in our pockets, and I'll be very brutal here, so please forgive me for this honesty. I feel it's honest. To me, I'm talking to myself again. If I put a British passport in my pocket, I accepted in 1917, it was a British foreign minister, Lord Balfour, who basically signed the declaration for Zionism and promising the modern Zionist movement that we will be giving you a land. He was the one, the British foreign minister, Lord Balfour, who lobbied all over the world. And in 1947, he lobbied United States so that Roosevelt went to Middle East and said, we are sending the Jews in, for like it or not. For 30 years, our government or my government paid for them to be posted there. We provided free ships to all these people to go and live there. And we provided £8 billion only in the last 5 years for the new settlements. So I think I have a duty to write to my MP and ask them the question. I have a duty to come out and say, not in my name. This is what I feel I should be doing. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Sorry, maybe I put it wrongly. This is the least I think I should be doing. I know that you guys are doing a lot more than what I can possibly do. But I just wanted to express how I should look at me and at least write, at least do some things, at least find the charities who are now actively working. They are trying to rebuild a very difficult situation. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. And this very much connects, because today I'm going to talk about Holy Prophet's life in Makkah after he became Prophet. We go through it so quickly in our discussions. 13 years of atrocities on a small number of people, just like today. 13 years of difficulties Holy Prophet had to endure. But his messages were so brilliant at that time. So we talked about in the Ghar Hira, the cave of Hira, he received the first revelation. The angel Jibreel came and said, read. He said, what? He said, well, Iqra bismika rabbikal ladhi. It's gone. Prophet started reading. Prophet started preaching. He comes back, meets Lady Khadija, we talked about it last week, and said, you know what, we are on the mission now. So now his life becomes a true symbol for us. He is living in the area with, if I can use the word, non-Muslims. We don't need a new model. We know what he was doing. We just don't need it. How is he still interacting? And we have to remember, even now, people were doing trade with him. People were talking to him. Slowly, they started basically ostracizing him. But he and his wife had enough money to buy a lot of people, slaves, and free them. That's what they were doing. People were engaging with them all the way up to the case of Shayb Abi Talib, which I'll come in a second. But what did he start doing? Remember, in Quran, we have heard from member how many times? What was his task? Twofold. He is the prophet who does tazkiyah nafs and teaches the ayat of Quran. Right? There's nothing more than that. But the order is clear. Tazkiyah nafs first. The cleansing of the spiritual being first. And our inner self. So let's look at what he is preaching. If you look at Quran itself, Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Majority of the surahs and ayat are revealed in Makkah actually. 86 surahs, not whole of it, but majority of the part of 86 surah out of 114 is revealed in Makkah, not in Medina. So and most of the orders are what? They are just three big concepts, and then we'll break in a second. The first was about monotheism, Tawheed, the authority of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Again, if we bring it for today's conflict, that's what we need to believe in. And I will bitterly say, but my God is not British government or American government. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given me aql to decide which side I should be on. Number two, it's about resurrection and judgment day. So if you look at most tafsir, they classify Quranic ayat of Makkah in these three parts. So how am I going to stand on the resurrection day and say, I'll let it happen? And number three, again, that's what we are supposed to practice, the righteous conduct. If you look at Tafsir Namuna to Tafsir Mizan, that's how they qualify. These are the three things. That's all Prophet talked about in Makkah. And then they break it into what? Again, let's think about, keep in our mind the conflict which is going on and our responsibility. These Surah talk and Nasim Karim Shirazi, what do you say? Forgiveness of sins, prayers, assisting others, no to the cheating, no love for wealth and worldly things, and obviously prevention of femicide, the children, the girls who were being buried. So obviously about human rights. That's what they have classified and they have put in the section. These were the ayat revealed in Makkah which address these three things. So what did Holy Prophet achieve over the next 13 years? He went to the people and told them very nicely, you know what? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is one, and what you should be doing and we should be doing, he's talking to us as well today. To say there are two things, bigger things you can achieve. One is there has to be justice in the world and social justice. We need to do right things. And the second, we need to achieve inner peace so that we can sleep better at night. These are my words, but this is what they have said. So again, if I can take it to today's, not just today's conflict, but any time, how can we sleep better at night? Holy Prophet is telling us that now. Look at the ayat of Quran in Makkah. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. There are interesting thing about those surahs as well. For example, the direction is not to Ya ayyuhallazina amanu. It is Ya ayyuhan nas. Majority of the time it talks about the mankind or people. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking to them. Very good lesson for us. So when we are in a pluralist, in a society which has got multiple faiths, we need to look at these ayat and surahs because they have got direction for us, how to behave with them. Moral response, and then there is another important theme which comes out here. As I said, truthfulness, kindness to relative, all of them is revealed. There's another important concept. Nasim Karim Shirazi writes, in Makkan surahs, it's very common. It is our moral responsibility towards Allah. That's what these ayat talk about. We don't even we just stand up and they say, well, actually, everything is okay, everybody's good, and everybody's nice. We ourselves, before we have responsibility to anybody else, we have got a responsibility towards Allah. And how do we know that? Risalatul Huquq. What is the first right there? Imam Zainul Abidin picks up. Is the right of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when we are talking about we talk about our community, in this community here. When we talk about the community outside there, then we talk about the community in the world. We are not doing any of that just for the people. There's a direct responsibility we have towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to do these things, to be good people, be truthful, be kind to relatives, be kind to neighbors, be kind to old people. That is all based on our moral responsibility to Allah. This is what Holy Prophet is preaching. If you look at even the ahadith of Makkah, they are very much connected to that. Holy Prophet is teaching us day by day by day how to live in a society which is full of sins. We don't need to create a new model now. We need to read those books. We need to read those Quran and Hadith. And then another interesting thing, who is he converting mostly? Who is he challenging? Firstly, okay, he's challenging the hierarchy. So initially, who are the people who are coming to him? The people who are slaves, are less fortunate people, are poor people, because they can see some light at the end of tunnel for them. But he famously was able to attract his family as well, apart from one of his uncles, Abu Lahab. So now let's classify those people who are against them. Brothers, when I'm saying these things, it's not because it's just a history. Because let's look around. That's what is happening now. Who are the people who reject the right message? I'm not saying again all, but these people have got their interests all the time. These are the people who are seeing their position shaking now. Who are these? Are the rulers of the time, the nobles, the head of the tribes at that time. So whenever a resistance stands up, these are the people who worry about these things first. Who are they? Umayyah ibn Khalaf, Abu Sufyan. They are the one who are saying. And Abu Lahab actually belongs to that entity, because what he is really waiting for, Abu Talib dies, I'm the oldest surviving brother, I become the head of Banu Hashim. That's what he really wants. But Prophet has challenged him on the basis of righteousness. The other one, which are very interesting group of people, and this is what we have to be careful about today, are so-called experts or intellectuals. Abu Jahl. Abu Jahl was not known as Abu Jahl in those days. His title is Abul Hakam. He was the father of wisdom. He used to run schools and teach people. And this is what he was. And he saw somebody else coming who's very clever, and people are getting, yeah, he makes sense. He's much more knowledgeable than I am. He sees his position moving. He comes with a vengeance against Prophet. And all his group comes against Holy Prophet. And the third people, we already talked about, are the wealthy people of that time. Because they don't want to let these slaves go. They don't want to let Mrs. Ginny go. They want their rule, and they want to cheat the foreign traders who are coming here. So what happens now? The atrocities are so high towards this smaller group that Muslims do not know what to do. So Holy Prophet comes with this direction to them now. And he says, you know what? Life is getting really hard for us. Yasir, the famous Sahabi, father of Ammar, he was murdered. His wife was murdered just for becoming Muslims. Bilal suffered heavily at that time. It was getting intolerable for the Muslims of that time. What do? He said, well, you know what? Some of us will have to stay here, but I can see it's getting difficult for most of you. So why don't you move away? These group of people embark on a very difficult journey from Makkah to cross over the sea up to Africa. People like Jafar Tayyar. And they arrive there, and they find some refuge in the land of Najashi or Habasha. Again, message for us. When refugees come, let's be Najashi. Provided they are proper refugees, because they have left their homes for the fear of death and murders and brutality. Najashi picks them up, who is the king of Ethiopia at that time, modern Ethiopia, I will say, although it was way bigger than what is Ethiopia now. So he had a huge kingdom. Quraysh don't like it. What do? They send their very wise people, clever people. And one of them, every history book tells you what is who? Umar ibn As. Same person who stood up against Imam Ali later on. And then later on somehow he became a Sahabi. He stood up, he was sent to kill or bring them back. He says, what I will do, Umar ibn As was always a wealthy man. He took a lot of presents to Najashi. Say, you know what, these are for you, give these back to us. Now Najashi is a fair man. He said, well, they need a hearing as well. Let's listen to them. He calls them there. And it is written in the history, the women there were trembling, standing behind that today we are going to be murdered. When Jafar-e-Tayyar stands up in the Najashi, this family is amazing. They can do things, they can do magic of that time. They stood there and said, now, we all know about Christians. And in those beliefs, Najashi was a hugely practicing Christian. And what did they believe in? Jesus being the Son of God. And Trinity. That's what, according to the books, was their belief. And what does Jafar-e-Tayyar do? So Umar ibn As said, cunning man, he said, ask them what do they think about Isa. Because they are blasphemous towards you, like God, Son of God. So he said to Jafar-e-Tayyar, what do you believe in? Jafar-e-Tayyar said, okay, I will not tell you my belief, I will tell you Surah Maryam. And he started reciting Surah Maryam. And he was so convincing. This is again another thing we learn. We need to have good communication skills. We need to get our point across. Even it is very hard, we are scared at that time that some person will not like it. If it is the right one, we need to have that skill in which we can transfer in a non-Muslim country. By the time Jafar-e-Tayyar finished, Najashi reached down and he picked up a straw. Tinka, we call it in Urdu. Very tiny thing. He said, do you know what he has said? The truth between what he said and Isa ibn Maryam, the difference is not even that Tinka. That is true. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. This is what not just Prophet was able to do. The people who really believed in Prophet could do. This is a challenge for us as well. This is the difficult time. How do we portray us? We learn from Jafar-e-Tayyar, we learn from Prophet, and we learn from another person of that time, Hamza. Hamza was a famous warrior. He was near to Prophet in his age, but he really did not do much with Makkah. He used to stay in traveling and hunting and going to other places. Sounds like he was quite a fun guy. So he was moving around, seeing places. Then he comes back. And that day, what had happened, that he was going towards his house and somebody said, Hamza, do you realize that what just happened? What happened? You know your nephew, he's very close to you. Abu Jahl has basically insulted him and thrown garbage at him and everything. He said, is that what happened? He said, yes. He just turned around. Hamza has a reputation of being a real gallant person. He walks into the Kaaba, and Abu Jahl is sitting there. And it is said that what Hamza had his hand was what do you call the command, the archery arch. He hit him on his head. And he said, next time I listen to you doing anything to my nephew, be ready. That's what I will do to you. And because of his bravery, what happens next? Muslims do, for the first time, they get together to recite Abba Jamaat Salat in Khana Muhammad. Life is hard, but people are trying to do their best. Very few people are being converted because intimidation is really high, persecution is high. And then in 10th after Hijrah, Holy Prophet goes through two big difficulties in his time. Lady Khadija and his uncle Abu Talib. They both pass away that year. Prophet calls this the year of sorrow, Amul Huzn. And he now does not know what to do next. Well, obviously he knows, but it looks like that what does he do now? Because he's lost his huge support. And now there have been attempts on Holy Prophet's life. Remember that. Hijrat was not the only night. There has been documented evidence. Even in Sahih Bukhari of Sunni book, there are attempts on Holy Prophet's life from 10 after Hijrah to 13 after Hijrah. Few times. He has got his family and friend and they pull together to help him. Where does he go now? He decides to go to Taif. Taif is another big city which is still there. Why? Because his another uncle Abbas lives there and he's got lands there. And he thought he will go and preach. But Quraysh found out that he was on the way, so they sent quick horses to that area. So people of Taif really threw stone at Holy Prophet and really hurt him so much. It is said that he had so much bleeding from the head, it was draining all the way to his feet by the time he came back. That's what Prophet had to go through. And then his servant was with him, Zaid ibn Harisa. He said, or Zaid ibn Sabit, and he basically said, Prophet, why don't you do Baddua for these people? And Holy Prophet said, that's not what I have come here for. I'm never going to do Baddua for any human being. They do not know what they are doing. This is what you live in a non-Muslim area. They even hurt you. You stand for what you believe in. You get hurt, you still stay. And you behave your best communication skill and best manners with them. He comes back from Taif. Time is running fast. 11th after Hijrah. And now, I thought I will say, but I'm running out of time now, so I'll stop in a second. He does something miraculously happens to him. The event of Isra or Mi'raj. When he is taken by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from Makkah to Baitul Muqaddas, who we are listening about now. If you see the golden dome, this is the point from where he ascended to the skies. Now question comes to our minds, and youths often ask this type of question, and even older people ask the question, how is it even possible? Did it really happen? And then people start to come up with the ideas, it must be a dream, because it was a spiritual journey. You must have heard of these arguments. And I remember this I heard, so I don't have time, so I won't go through, but this particular point I really liked about this concept. When I was little, I heard that. The discussion was going on about our 12th Imam's age. How old is he? How is it possible? Come on, when it's 1200 years. Is it really, really possible? And you guys are making it up. It can't be. And one teacher, he basically said something nice. He said, when people argue about Imam's age, and let's translate that to Mi'raj as well, that only means one thing, that we have not been able to convince them to have firm belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because it was not Prophet did something, it was Allah did something. If Allah wants to do it, then how can he be stopped from taking somebody to one? So that only means we have really not understood. We will never understand Allah. I know that. Well, at least I would never, because my knowledge is my brain is very tiny. But even if I don't try to understand what Allah is capable of, then so the most of our understanding really needs to go into Tawheed and what Allah is capable of doing. I had a lot of written here, but I will just stop in a second. But I really wanted this point to come across, because this I learned from my teacher, and it was, I think, was a very profound point. That challenging the falsafa or mu'jiza is not challenging the mu'jiza of the person. It's challenging the authority of Allah. If Allah wants to Prophet to go to Mi'raj, he can do it. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. 11th after Hijrah. So when Holy Prophet came back, there were obviously people challenged him, and he could even prove, well, I can tell you the caravan is going and everything he told. Obviously, those people, and then Shakul Qamar happened, the divide the moon. And we don't know to get hooked on that, because to me, the basic principle was the same. If Allah wanted to do it, he would do anything. To me, the bigger mojza is Prophet survived all this time. To me, bigger mojza was that Islam carried on after all those atrocities. How is it possible? And like Mullah Sadiq Hasan, my teacher, also said one thing. He said, for an authority of any event or hadith or a belief, what is important? That there are more and more ravi, more and more narrators who tell their hadith. But you know what's the biggest mojza of today? One hadith which had most narrators is Ghadir. And you go on the street, not many people know this. He said one hadith which did not have many narrators is Karbala. And you go on the street and everybody knows it. That is the mojza. So let's move on to the next thing which Holy Prophet did, and I will stop here. In same year, Lady Khadija has passed away. So Prophet marries a lady called Sauda bint Zamma. Sauda has got a lot of interesting history as well. She and her husband, whose name was Sakran ibn Amr, they were the two first migrators from Makkah to Habsha. And she was one of them. And this is when Sakran died. Either he died in Habsha or soon after his return. So in order to support Sauda, especially because Khadija had died, Holy Prophet marries her. And so one of the other events which we have missed, because we have talked about it before, but it's also important to remember on the atrocities, is the Shebe Abi Talib. When from 7th year to 10th year after the Baisat, after the Nabuwa, they were locked away in a ditch outside Makkah. We do not exactly know where it was, but most people say that it is where Jannatul Mualla is now. It is right behind it. And I will just say one narration and I'll finish. One Umar ibn Saad, we have heard about it. He was the commander of the Yazidi army. His father, Saad ibn Abi Waqas, has got a huge reputation as a Sahabi, but more importantly, as the conqueror of Iran. He was a huge warlord. He had accepted Islam. He came and stayed with Holy Prophet and his family in that area for 3 years. And in those days, they were not allowed any food or any water, and they were just stuck there. And Saad ibn Waqas said, and just think of it this way. When somebody asked him later in Medina, how was that time like? He said, if we could find anything which was soft and our teeth could chew, we used to eat that. We used to eat mud. We used to eat leaf. We used to eat anything which we could find on the ground. This is how we survived those 3 years. Makkah was a difficult place. And here Prophet, after 13 years, he meets some people who have come from a different city. And they have heard about the message, and they want to talk to Holy Prophet more. So inshallah, next time we'll talk about the event of Hijrat and what happened after that. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. May Allah inspire us to learn from Holy Prophet's life. May Allah inspire us to learn from the life which can be applicable today. There is nothing in the history which happens for the first time. It all has happened before. We can easily go back to the history and find where our Ahlul Bayt, our Holy Prophet and Ahlul Bayt stood. May Allah actually give us the tawfiq to really inspire ourselves. Forget YouTube and TikTok. We need to go there and learn from those people what we should be doing, how we should be raising voice, which side should be on. And I don't even need to say that. I really know deep down in my heart, not just you, anybody on the street, they know which side they should be on. So may Allah give us the opportunity. May Allah protect all of the humanity, all the Muslims. and especially the butchers who are planning their more assaults and assaults. May Allah just prevent that from happening. And may Allah give us the courage to wait for our Imam, but prepare ourselves by being on the right side now. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Assalamu alayka ya Rasul Allah. Assalamu alayka ya Nabi Allah. Assalamu alayka ya Habib Allah. Assalamu alayka ya Khataman Nabiyyin. Assalamu alayka ya Mawlaya ya Amir al-Mu'mineen. Assalamu alayki ya Fatimah al-Zahra Sayyidati Nisa'il Alameen. Assalamu alayka ya Aba Muhammad al-Hassan. Assalamu alayka ya Mawlaya Aba Abdillah. Assalamu alayka ya Waritha Adam Sifwatillah. Assalamu alayka ya Waritha Nuhin Nabiyillah. Assalamu alayka ya Waritha Ibrahim Khalilillah. Assalamu alayka ya Waritha Musa Kalimillah. Assalamu alayka ya Waritha Isa Ruhillah. Assalamu alayka ya Waritha Muhammadin Habibillah. Assalamu alayka ya Waritha Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam waliyillah. Assalamu alayka ya ibna Muhammadin al-Mustafa. Assalamu alayka ya ibna Ali al-Murtada. Assalamu alayka ya ibna Fatimah al-Zahra. Assalamu alayka ya ibna Khadijah al-Kubra. Assalamu alayka ya Thar Allah wa ibna Tharih. والوتر الموتور أشهد أنك قد قمت الصلاة وآتيت الزكاة وأمرت بالمعروف ونهيت عن المنكر وأطعت الله ورسوله حتى أتاك اليقين ولعن الله أمة قتلتك ولعن الله أمة ظلمتك ولعن الله أمة سمعت بذلك فرضيت به يا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله أشهد أنك كنت نورا في الأصلاب الشامخة والأرحام المطهرة لم تنجسك الجاهلية بأنجاسها ولم تلبسك من مدلهمات ثيابها وأشهد أنك من دعائم الدين وأركان المؤمنين وأشهد أنك الإمام البر التقي الرضي الزكي الهادي المهدي وأشهد أن الأئمة من ولدك كلمة التقوى وأعلام الهدى والعروة الوثقى والحجة على أهل الدنيا وأشهد الله وملائكته وأنبياءه ورسله أني بكم مؤمن وبإيابكم موقن بشرائع ديني وخواتيم عملي وقلبي لقلبكم سلم وأمري لأمركم متبع صلوات الله عليكم وعلى أرواحكم وعلى أجسادكم وعلى أجسامكم وعلى شاهدكم وعلى غائبكم وعلى ظاهركم وعلى باطنكم بأبي أنت وأمي يا ابن رسول الله بأبي أنت وأمي يا أبا عبد الله لقد عظمت الرزية وجلت المصيبة بك علينا وعلى جميع أهل السماوات والأرض فلعن الله أمة أسرجت وألجمت وتهيأت لقتالك السلام عليك يا ابن رسول الله السلام عليك يا ابن نبي الله السلام عليك يا ابن أمير المؤمنين السلام عليك يا ابن الحسين الشهيد السلام عليك أيها الشهيد وابن الشهيد السلام عليك أيها المظلوم
وابن المظلوم لعن الله أمة قتلتك ولعن الله أمة ظلمتك ولعن الله أمة سمعت بذلك فرضيت به. السلام عليك يا ولي الله وابن وليه، لقد عظمت المصيبة وجلت الرزية بك علينا وعلى جميع المسلمين، فلعن الله أمة قتلتك وأبرأوا إلى الله وإليك منهم. السلام عليكم يا أولياء الله وأحباءه، السلام عليكم يا أصفياء الله وأوداءه، السلام عليكم يا أنصار دين الله، السلام عليكم يا أنصار رسول الله، السلام عليكم يا أنصار أمير المؤمنين، السلام عليكم يا أنصار فاطمة سيدة نساء العالمين، السلام عليكم يا أنصار أبي محمد الحسن بن علي الولي الزكي الناصح، السلام عليكم يا أنصار أبي عبد الله، بأبي أنتم وأمي طبتم وطابت الأرض التي فيها دفنتم ففزتم فوزا عظيما، فيا ليتني كنت معكم فأفوز معكم. السلام عليك يا أبا الفضل العباس بن أمير المؤمنين، السلام عليك يا ابن سيد الوصيين، السلام عليك يا ابن أول القوم إسلاما وأقدمهم إيمانا وأقومهم بدين الله وأحوطهم على الإسلام. أشهد لقد نصحت لله ولرسوله ولأخيك فنعم الأخ المواسي، فلعن الله أمة قتلتك ولعن الله أمة ظلمتك ولعن الله أمة استحلت منك المحارم وانتهكت حرمة الإسلام، فنعم الصابر المجاهد المحامي الناصر وله الدافع عن أخيه المجيب إلى طاعة ربه الراغب فيما زيد في غيره من الثواب الجزيل والثناء الجميل، والحقك الله بدرجة آبائك في جنات النعيم. السلام عليكم يا سائر شهداء كربلاء جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا شمس الشموس وأنيس النفوس أيها المدفون بأرض طوس، الرضا المرتضى الراضي بالقدر والقضاء، مولانا علي بن موسى الرضا، كن شفيعنا وشفيع والدينا في يوم الجزاء. وفقنا الله لزيارتك يا مولاي، والصلاة والسلام على آبائك الطاهرين وأبنائك المعصومين وعلى أختك فاطمة المعصومة ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا حجة الله بن الحسن يا صاحب العصر والزمان، السلام عليك يا خليفة الرحمن، السلام عليك يا شريك القرآن، السلام عليك يا كعبة الإيمان، عجل الله لك ما وعدك من النصر وظهور الأمر ورحمة الله وبركاته.
الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم كن لوليك الجن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هجر الصادق وفي كريسة وليا وحافظا قائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك وتوديه فيها طويلا. سورة فاتحة.